Science for Education Board meeting for May 14th will now come to order. The time is 6:10. Maria, please take attendance. Present. Would we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? This is going to be difficult. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, currently there are no items for executive session, so we will move on to public participation. The board welcomes public comment. We will call people in the order in which they have signed up. As you begin, please state your name and address for the record. Each person is permitted to speak for no more than 2 minutes. A bell will ring when you have 30 seconds remaining, and again at the end of the 2 minutes. I ask that you please respect this limit. Inappropriate behavior will not be tolerated. If exhibited, we will turn off the microphones and the person will be asked to leave the meeting. I'd like to remind everyone during public comment, the board is in a listening mode, and as such, board members do not respond to comments. Written public comments may be emailed to lae@lawrence.k12.ma.us no later than 2 o'clock in the afternoon of our meeting. So we're ready to begin. Mr. Marley.
Humayun Mali, 53 Chester Street. Good evening, honorable members. We, the citizens, are grateful and proud for the Lawrence Public School with the impeccable leadership by Honorable Superintendent Ralph Guerrero on the road to become the best public school in the nation. We, the citizens, in this important collective bargaining negotiation, demand the best compensation for our hard-working cafeteria workers. Lawrence Public School is great because of our best teachers, because of our paraprofessional employees, and our hard-working cafeteria workers. We stand united to support your union. In this war, in this challenge, in support of our teachers and the union, the greatest responsibility of every citizen is to support the teachers' union. We, the Laurentian, are #1 champion in the nation. Support teachers' union, the teachers who inspire the whole world, the teachers who educate the children of the world. Lawrence teachers, you are #1, the true guardian angel for the bright future for the Lawrence. Lawrence always is strong. Lawrence always unite. In this important collective bargaining year, we, the citizen, are behind all the union of our teachers, our cafeteria workers, and paraprofessional employees. Thank you for excellent job.
Jen, I'm going to apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name. Giovannis Trinidad? Please make sure.
Muy buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Giovanni Esther Trinidad. Soy trabajadora de la cafetería de la escuela, precisamente de esta escuela de la Sao Lorenz. Y estamos aquí porque nosotros necesitamos un contrato justo. Tenemos un tiempo. Perdón.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Good evening. My name is Giovanni Trinidad, and I am a cafeteria worker specifically for this school, South Lawrence East. And we are here because we will need a fair contract.
Pues bien,
Tenemos un tiempo.
tenemos un tiempo ya en
Can you
que
guys hear me?
hemos estado en negociaciones para...
Good evening. My name is Giovanni Trinidad, and I
Tenemos un tiempo ya negociando para tener un contrato justo y no lo hemos podido lograr. Por eso estamos aquí, para que nuestras voces sean escuchadas, ya que el costo de la vida sube cada día más y nuestros salarios permanecen estancados. Además de eso, nuestro trabajo aumenta cada día, hay más regulaciones que cumplir y tenemos más trabajo. Por lo tanto, nosotros estamos trayendo aquí a ustedes, a esta hermosa sala, para que tomen en consideración nuestras necesidades y podamos negociar y poder haber flexibilidad de ambas partes. Nosotros hemos estado dispuestos a flexibilizar. Ahora queremos ver qué propuesta que nos convenga a nosotros ustedes pueden presentarnos de tal manera que llegamos a un acuerdo justo.
And so it's been a while since we've been trying to negotiate a fair contract, and we are here so that our voices are heard. Our cost of living has increased. Our salaries are stuck in the same place, and we have more work. We have more regulations that we need to abide by. We've been increased the work, and so we are here in this beautiful room so that you can consider our needs and we could negotiate and have flexibility on both parts, and so that we can speak a proposal that benefits all.
Muchas gracias por su atención.
Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Raymond Nunez.
Good evening, buenas tardes. I would like to highlight the opportunities Superintendent Carrero provided the teachers and paraprofessional with the Dominican Republic Immersion Program, and also the paraprofessional to teacher program. Thank you for the opportunity you're providing the teachers and also the paraprofessional for continued professional development. Have a good night and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nunez.
Sorry, I apologize. I
Oh,
forgot
I'm
to mention
sorry.
my street address, 121 Union Street.
Benitez Vertilia. I probably.
Buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Bertilia Benítez y vivo en el 18 de la Beacon Street. Tengo 23 años trabajando en la Frogo School. Y ahora mismo lo que estamos recibiendo y estamos ganando, yo al menos 18 pesos ahora en estos tiempos. No es justo y nosotros todas necesitamos un sueldo justo para todos nosotros. No es justo como nosotros estamos trabajando. Estamos trabajando para todo el equipo escolar. Ayudamos a todos los niños. Sin nosotros los niños, ¿cómo van a vivir? Porque nosotros somos los que damos los alimentos, los que lo ayudamos con sus cerebros, porque los niños si no tienen alimentos, ¿cómo van a trabajar en la escuela? No es justo que nosotros nos pongan como si nosotros no fuéramos nada. Y perdonen la palabra, porque nosotros siempre, nunca nos dan lo que merecemos. Necesitamos apoyo de todos ustedes, porque sin ustedes, ¿cómo nosotros vamos a vivir? Y eso es lo que nosotros queremos, un buen sueldo y una buena ayuda para todos nosotros en el sistema escolar, porque no es justo que los demás reciban de todo y nosotros nada. Gracias.
My name is Bertilia Benitez. I live on 18 Beacon Street. I've been working in the Frost for years. And right now, at this moment, I get paid $18. And we really need a salary that is fair for all of us. We help all our children. And how would the children survive without us? We help them with their brain. How would they be able to study without us feeding them? And we don't get what we deserve. We need more support. We need assistance with our salaries so that we can help each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Arielis Reyes.
Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Arelis Pujol. Trabajo para el sistema escolar. Estoy fija en la escuela de la Froe School, en la cafetería. Tengo 20 años en el sistema. Hasta ahora no veo que nos están llevando a un nivel de que uno pueda decir que estamos superándonos. No. Estamos negociando hace un año y no nos dan el reconocimiento que tienen que darnos, un contrato justo. Hasta ahora estamos 18.76. ¿Cómo es justo que vamos a estar así, donde el costo de la vida está subiendo y eso no alcanza para nada? Mientras más trabajo, más responsabilidades, más de todo. ¿Por qué no tienen compasión con nosotras, los que trabajamos en la cafetería de la Escuela Pública de Loren? ¿Por qué? Yo le pido que por favor, que analicen eso y que nos ofrezcan lo que merecemos en verdad. Muchas gracias.
Good evening. My name is Arelis Pujol. I've been working for the school district permanently. I've been in the district for 20 years. I work at the cafeteria, and we don't show that we are evolving. We do not have a fair contract. At the moment, we're getting paid $18.76. How is that fair for us as cafeteria workers? The cost of living increases. Our work increases, our responsibilities increase. Why do we get treated like that? Why do cafeteria workers get treated like that? We deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. Juana Espinoza.
Good afternoon. My name is Juana Espinoza. I live on 47 Adams Street here in Lawrence. I want to thank the Mr. Carrero, the superintendent, as well as the LEA board and all the team that made it possible for us to be able to go to the DR immersion program. It was a great opportunity. It was a great learning experience for all that attended to the DR immersion. It gave us an opportunity to understand the student that we're working with, where they're coming from, and what can we do better to help them here in the Lawrence Public School. So I want to thank you in the bottom of my heart for all the work done and all the work of the team that went with us to the DR to really understand the academic and also the needs that they are having academically, and to be able to support them here as we best can. So thank you, and thank you again on behalf of the team that went with us, and we want to continue the work because there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we can do it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Juana. Carmen Diaz.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Carmen Díaz. Vivo en la 12 de la Acton. Trabajo para la Lawrence High. Soy una empleada de las cafeterías de Lawrence y nos sentimos discriminadas laboralmente. ¿Por qué? Porque venimos con una lucha desde el 22. Desde el 22 venimos con lucha por un mejor sueldo, por un mejor ingreso, por un mejor beneficio. Y este trabajo que nosotros hacemos, lo hacemos con mucha calidad. Con mucha calidad lo hacemos porque los niños se comen satisfechamente. Y necesitamos que nos valoren como empleados que somos. Como que somos buenos empleados, esperamos que nos valoren. Gracias.
Hello, my name is Carmen Diaz. I live at 12 Acton Street. I work for the cafeteria in Lawrence High School in Lawrence. We feel that we've been discriminated as workers. We've been dealing with this since 2022. We need a better salary, we need a better income, we need better benefits. We provide quality work for our students, and we need to be valued as such. Thank you.
Thank you. Ramses Gonzalez.
Buenas noches para todos. Mi nombre es Aranzaí González. Trabajo en la Parton School desde hace 15 años. Yo vine aquí para hablar por todas nosotras, que tengan piedad y compasión de nosotras. Lo que nosotros estamos trabajando fuerte por los niños y para ustedes también, para los maestros también, para todo el mundo. Y a nosotros no nos están tomando en cuenta. Tenemos que salir a hacer piquete, tenemos que salir a hablar con los concejales para tener un poco de ayuda, porque no nos están dando la ayuda que necesitamos. Yo gano a 18.72 y tengo 15 años trabajando para este departamento. Muchas gracias.
Hello, my name is Ransai Gonzalez. I've been working at the part-time school for 15 years, and I'm just asking for some compassion towards us. We work hard for our children. We work hard for you guys, for the teachers, for everyone. We've been having to do pickets, and we've been having to speak to the council to get some help. I actually earn at $18.72 per hour, and I've been in the district for 15 years. Thank you.
Buenas noches. Buenas noches, mi nombre es Ana Sánchez. Vivo en la 31 Bigelow Street y trabajo en el sistema escolar por 8 años. Estamos aquí para que ustedes escuchen nuestras voces, porque este problema nos está quejando a nosotros por años, el salario de las escuelas. Nosotros le hacemos un llamado al superintendente que ponga atención en esto. Nosotros sabemos que él encontró esto cuando él entró, porque estábamos en negociación desde el año pasado. Entonces, sabemos, pero le pedimos que ponga carta en el asunto, que estudien bien, que analicen nuestro contrato, porque tenemos esperando, y lo que nos ha dicho la unión de nosotros, nuestros representantes, es que ya se fueron a mediación porque no han llegado a ningún acuerdo. Entonces, nosotros queremos ya concluir con esto. Le hacemos un llamado para que usted, superintendente, nosotros ponemos nuestra esperanza en usted, porque nosotros pedimos un cambio de superintendencia, porque fuimos muy discriminadas y muy maltratadas en el pasado con los superintendentes que teníamos antes. Muchísimas gracias.
Hello, my name is Ana Sanchez. I live at 31 Bigelow. I've been working in the LPS district for 8 years, and we've all been affected with our salary for years. This is a calling for the superintendent. I know that you found this issue already because we've been trying to negotiate since last year, and we would just like to ask you to analyze our contract. We've been very discriminated in the previous superintendencies, and what we have been told is that we're currently in mediation and we haven't been able to get an agreement. So we have our hope on you, Mr. Superintendent, so that we can go into an agreement for all.
Thank you. Myra Ortiz. I'd like to welcome Mrs. Ortiz. She's our school committee district representative for District A. Thank you for being here, Myra.
Good evening, Councilor Myra Ortiz, present school committee member from Prospect Hill, 45 Norris Street. This evening, I come before you for public participation. My specific interest is learning how we are navigating our FY26 budget and what we are doing, hoping to hear what we are doing to navigate these difficult times that we're in with all the federal cuts, state cuts, and all the different things that are happening here in our city. What I did find is these wonderful people here from the cafeteria workers from, I'm not sure what Chapter 3 union, and I stand in solidarity on equity and payment for all of our workers, and I know that that's difficult. So that's just an added bonus to know that advocacy is happening everywhere in our city, and we are here as a school committee. I'm here as a school committee member to listen and to advocate. What I've heard in our last school committee meeting last Wednesday was a lot of parents, teachers, and students that are frustrated this year, and I believe a lot of it is just not being well represented in a way where if we're only talking to each other and we're not talking and having everybody come to the table and talking here in this space, then it just becomes murmuring and we can't take any action. So I'm looking forward to taking that listening posture and seeing what the board has and the superintendent has with this specific budget, and overall listening to everyone as we're going through these really difficult times with the federal government. Let's just take some ease in our city is what I'm looking for. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Denise Molina.
Apologize, it's been a very long day for me. Good evening. Sorry. Good evening, distinguished guests. Planning committee, I apologize. It's been a long day. Superintendent, Mr. Carrero, I know that you are familiar with my name. My name is Denise Molina, and I stand before you as a mother, an advocate, and the founder of Spectrum Support Collective, an organization that was formed out of necessity as a parent to support families of children with autism and those navigating the school system, including English as a second language. I speak for parents who feel voiceless, for those who are overwhelmed, ignored, and tired of waiting for change that never seems to come. I want every parent in the Lawrence Public Schools to know you are not alone. We are stronger together. You can reach me directly at sscollectivenow@gmail.com because our children deserve more than silence. I have sent over 31 emails to this district, including to some of you sitting before me right now. The school committee and this board, yet the only responses I've received have come from individual school employees and a few school committee members, not from leadership entrusted with ensuring our children's safety, dignity, and education. As a primary voice and protector of my son, who is autistic and recently suffered a concussion, I must ask, what will you do to ensure this never happens again? I am not the only parent who is suffering through this. Lawrence has one of the highest percentages of autism and special education students in the state. And yet the staff entrusted with our children are clearly not equipped, not trained, and not supported to meet their needs. I want to be clear, this is not a statement against our teachers, nor our principals. This is a statement to say that this cannot be fixed with compliance checkboxes or vague commitments. We need a strategic, systemic, and humane response. We need proper training for our schools, not just in crisis response, but in autism competency, trauma-informed care, and language access. Because when the system fails to equip the adults responsible for our children pay the price. My child's fear of going to school, his pain, and his ongoing recovery are scars that could have been prevented. So again, I ask, What is this district going to do moving forward to ensure that the people responsible for our children's care and the care of students like him are properly trained? We are not asking for perfection. We are demanding accountability, equity, and action. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Antonia Ortega.
Mi nombre es Antonia Ortega. Yo vengo representando la escuela de la Arlington School. La Arlington. No se oye. Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Antonia Ortega. Represento la escuela de la Arlington School. Yo quiero pedirle, por favor, que tomen un poquito de su tiempo y evalúen el trabajo. Es una responsabilidad tan grande que tenemos cada una de las personas que trabajamos en la escuela, en la cocina, cada responsabilidad con cada niño. Y que tomen en cuenta, que valoren el trabajo que nosotros hacemos. Nosotros estamos pidiendo un aumento y ustedes saben que la renta cada día está más alta y nosotros quiero que valoren, solamente les voy a decir que tomen un tiempo y valoren la importancia del trabajo que se hace en la cocina de la escuela. Y nosotros, el trabajo bueno que hacemos nosotros, que habla de nosotros, también habla bien del sistema escolar. ¿De cuánto?
Good evening. My name is Antonia Ortega, and I represent the Arlington School. I would just like for you to take a bit of your time and just evaluate our work, our compromise with the kitchen and with the children, and that you value our work. We need an increase in our salary. Our rent is going up, and I would just like our time to be valued in the school, in the kitchen. And just as we show the good work that we do within the kitchen, it also shows in our school system. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that's on Zoom that we know of? No? Okay. That concludes our public participation for this evening. Thank you all for voicing your concerns. At this point in the chair's report, I'd like to ask Dr. Jen Perry to come up and just give us an update for the curriculum subcommittee.
There's not much of one for this month because we were not able to meet in May. So we will meet on June 5th. I believe it's a Thursday at 5 p.m. That'll be our last scheduled meeting for the year. And we're looking forward to wrapping up and having a good discussion then. Okay.
Thank you. That's a good segue into what I'd like to discuss this evening with members of the board and the public. There will be presentations from the Policy and Budget and Finance Committee later in the agenda, but I realize that my absence for quite some time has hindered the progress of the subcommittees. So I would like to take some time over the summer to regroup with the board, look at what has worked and what may have caused some to be absent for these meetings. We will begin to survey you again to determine which times work for you, each member of the subcommittees, and we will plan accordingly. As a subcommittee member, once our schedules are set, we must be at the meetings each time that they're posted. Our responsibility is to be present, ask questions, and be aware of the role these different groups play in the school system. And I believe many of us on this board requested more involvement in the district's operation, day-to-day operation last year. So we're going to try it again and make it even better as we begin the school year. All right, Any comment from the board? Maria? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next section of the agenda, which are votes. The first vote we have is the Quest Collaborative. And Superintendent, could you give us a brief overview
Surely.
before we take the vote?
Madam Chair, members of the board, am I being heard? Okay, thank you. The CREST Collaborative is the regional educational service and training center for 18 schools that include Lawrence Public Schools. They provide services, very specialized services to our special education students. Those are students that can't be serviced in district. And the collaborative is able, by collaboration of pooling a lot of dollars together, to provide those services for our kids right here in the town of Andover. I serve as the member of the Lawrence Public Schools on their board, along with the other 17 communities. We meet on a monthly basis and discuss all of the policies, services for students, and oversight of the operations. Annually, the CREST board, just like we're doing now, go over all of their policies, and it is required for them to receive a vote of affirmation from each of the communities that they serve. So the package that you have in front of you, if you had a chance to read it, I asked that they had highlighted in yellow, cross out, and what have you, so it would have been easier for members of the board to look at. I reviewed them, the teams reviewed them, and we feel very comfortable with the recommendations that they're making to make it much more accessible and feasible to provide the services to our students that attend the CREST Collaborative. Just as a point of reflection, Madam, Lawrence does have the most children participating at the CREST board. They currently have 171 total students, and of that, the majority happens to be students from Lawrence Public Schools.
Any questions from the board?
So, when you think about the benefits
Yes.
these students get, what will you say?
Well, they are professionals. They specialized in special education, and as I mentioned, our students through the special ed department, they meet with the team, and if we can't provide the specialized services that they're requiring, and they're especially older students that are there, they're recommended to participate and attend the CREST school. We provide transportation for them, and actually they're right down the street from the Greater Lawrence Technical School. If you keep going on the left-hand side, they're in a beautiful new building that used to be a business that was there. They've been there now for approximately 5 years. But the services that they provide for our students, the surveys that we receive from our parents regarding the quality and the services and how they pay attention to students has been very beneficial.
So these are all the ages.
Yes, so correct. And as I mentioned, on your second page, I believe, are all of the school committees from Amesbury, Andover, Boxford, Georgetown, the Greater Lawrence Technical School, Haverhill, Ipswich, Lawrence, Lowell, Masconomet Regional, Methuen, Middleton, Newbury, North Andover, Pawtucket, Topsfield, and Triton.
Should be of interest to know that we participate in that.
Arlene, are you able to shed any light on the collaborative? Okay, I don't believe, Ms. Dolores, that the services that we provide to all of the kids reach down to that particular age level.
Okay, can you hear me better?
Shed any light on the collaborative? Okay, I don't believe,
Mr. Loris, that the services that we provide to all of the kids reach down.
Cookie.
No. I'm not totally specific with what age span it is because I know that they provide a lot of service to middle grammar school and all the way through what we refer to as postgraduate. But obviously, it's a service that we have, and I believe through our special education department, families can request that service. And again, if we don't provide the services in district because we can't, we pay a fee to the collaborative.
But it's a plus that we have.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
So, Madam Chair, your vote is to.
I have it right
Okay,
there.
thank you, dear.
What is the cost? Do we know the cost for the collaborative? Is it per child or is it a blanket amount?
It depends on the services that are needed.
Madam Chair, it depends on, there's a transportation cost as well, to a tuition cost as well. And then there's reimbursement around circuit breaker. So it can vary from 55 to 85, depending on.
55 to 85,000.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Eileen. I appreciate that. Any other questions of the board?
85.
Anyone?
I don't know, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I had a process question for this. So it says each school committee and charter school board executive this agreement shall annually appoint the superintendent of schools or one school committee member. So is there a process for this? Does this mean that if we're going to be a part of this, which I think we are already, does that mean that annually we have to make the decision who goes?
I believe their bylaws indicate that the superintendent represents the school district, not so much the school committee of each community. So I've participated in the meetings, and everyone that is part of the board is either the finance director or the superintendent of schools. So I agree. I don't believe in the bylaws it actually mentions the actual governance board of each of the communities. They do?
It's a superintendent.
Or?
It's superintendent or, exactly.
One or the other?
Yeah.
I give up my seat.
No, yeah, I'm just asking a process question, not a. It's not like I want to go, but I just want to make sure that I'm asking if annually, does that mean if are we making votes on who goes in terms of the process of the LE board or school committee or whoever? More of a process question than anything else.
Correct.
Page 5 gives you the breakup at the top.
I didn't know that. That's good. I got drafted. The governance structure. Yeah, that's correct. So that's done annually. Anything else, Madam Chair?
Any further questions or comments?
I'm personally okay with you being the person that serves, but it's actually, I do appreciate the flexibility that allows, so I'm fine with that.
Meetings are once.
But
Meetings are once a month, and they're at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're usually on Zoom or at the collaborative.
But I think us as a board, maybe we should establish some sort of a system in terms of, like Edgar said, like a process. In terms
Yeah.
of like when do we're supposed to do that once a year, so when do we determine that? Maybe put that on the agenda for some meeting throughout the year.
I'll find out when their annual is. Like I said, when I first came on, I was visited by the superintendent of the collaborative, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that was, and I got signed on. But I'm glad to hear that you could have the superintendent, school board member as his designee. So I will find out when the annual meeting is and remind the board, Madam Chair.
All right, are we ready to move on? I'd like to make a motion that the LAE hereby approve the amendments to the CREST Articles of Agreement as approved by CREST Board of Directors on March 12th and March 26th, 2025. I'd like to make that in the form of a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Maria. Second?
Second?
Articles of Agreement as approved by CREST Board of Directors on March 12th and March 26th, 2025. I'd like to make that in the form of a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Maria. Second? Can I call the roll, Suzanne?
Second?
Articles of approved by CREST Board of Directors on March 12th and March 26th, 2025. I'd like to make that in the form of a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Maria. Second? Can I call the roll, Suzanne?
Second?
Yeah, I'm yes. I don't know.
All right, hearing no further discussion, Maria, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion passes, correct? Thank you. Next, I'd like to call up Jason Cabrera, and he's going to give us an explanation of the budget that's going to be submitted to the City Council with our vote.
Welcome, Mr. Cabrera.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent. There's going to be a presentation coming up. It's a short presentation. We had our meeting last month where we talked about the budget, where we were at. We have had meetings, public meetings, since January, at least 5 or 6 of them. Haven't had a quorum, haven't had any members of the public participate, just like we did last month, and when we opened it to the public, no participation. And here we are today presenting the budget, the best budget that we can present for the benefit of the children of our schools. A couple of things that I want to highlight. And Suzanne, can you go to the first slide? I don't know if you're projecting that, but that's towards the end.
No.
Yeah. So a couple of things I want to highlight before I go into the presentation. In this budget, we have budgeted for every position that we have today. So there is no cutting funds for salaries, for positions. So every position that we have today is budgeted for the next year. The initiatives that the superintendent talked about, and Suzanne, if you can go to the first key initiatives, these commitments that we talked about in our last meeting, and that the superintendent highlighted in his letter to the mayor, those things are still being funded. Things like the enhanced curriculum, the expansion of the early childhood program and some other programs, the redesigning of the academies and the summer opportunities, enrichment opportunities. We're expanding the Visual and Performing Arts Center. We're getting a few more teachers for that. We have a dean for that position, so we're expanding that. And then facilities and school building improvements. We have allocated funds, anticipating that next year will be a lot more costly to maintain our buildings and our new buildings and keeping them the way they are. So that's number one. Number two, we are prepared to meet our contract obligations. We have 10 unions with which we are negotiating right now. We we've budgeted for that. Of course, there is there's always a limit on what we can do. Let me see. So we factor in the contracts into this formula. Let me see. If we can go to the next one, I just want to talk about the assessments and the receipts. Last time I was here, we talked about the Chapter 70 funding for the city of Lawrence, which comes up to about $333,930,425. This is I want to amend the record. I had sent a booklet to the board, and the numbers here are a little bit different than the booklet, but the bottom line is the same. So there's a couple of things like charter tuition that is different in the booklet that you got, but the total appropriation remains the same. Last time we talked about the differences between what we felt we needed to get everything that we wanted to get accomplished, and what the reality was. We have landed somewhere in the middle. From the 333 million and almost 334 million, we are deducting the things that are static, right? That we have to deduct, such as the charter tuition, school choice, special education. We've had conversations with the city and the Department of Education about these municipal related costs, and we are working on a memorandum of understanding to button that up a little bit more. And then we add the charter tuition reimbursement, which is a number that comes from the state based on our enrollment. And then we have transportation, adult education, leases, and some reimbursement for CT. That gives us the $307,026,144 total appropriation that we're hoping that the board approves. And when superintendent and I go in front of the city council, we can get that also approved so that we can get to work. Next slide. Yeah, a lot of numbers, this is in the booklet. It's just for your information what we're spending on salaries and benefits, utilities, facilities, transportation, tuition contracts, etc. All that totals the 307 million that we're talking about, expecting to get approved. Next slide. A little bit more of that. Let me find it on mine real quick. See if I can see this. So this is the departments by expenditures, or not expenditures, what they're getting budgeted for, starting with the largest and then working our way down the list. Budget on finance with 46, almost 47 million. Budget on finance holds the funds for healthcare, Medicare, dental, all those benefits. We also hold the accounts to pay for our utilities. So gas, electricity, water. So that number is a little bit higher than most. Second, we have the special learning services, which, yes, special learning services, which is our special education and student support. We have facilities management, curriculum and instruction, and high school transportation, and our school for exceptional studies students. All those round up the top six as far as funding goes. Next.
Mr. Cabrera, could I stop you for 1 minute?
Yes, ma'am.
In this packet that you gave us this evening, why is the SES annex blacked out?
We included it in the SCS. So we're including the annex and the SCS in one line item,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes.
Okay,
So
separate.
if you see,
Instead of separating them, they put them together.
Okay.
'Cause
Thank
they-
you.
yeah, if you see, let me see, School for Exceptional Studies. Yes, we have it in both. We had it last year, and last year they were both combined, and this year they're also combined. If you look at 22 or 23, 24, it's about 6 million, and then it goes up to 12, 11 million. Thank you for asking that. The next. All right. We saw this last time in April. This is just grants. We're reading this from left to right. We haven't had any changes in our grants thus far, so we're counting with those funds to supplement what we bring to the children. It's not part of our day-to-day operation as far as we use it for the operation, but we use it to supplement the operation. And out of those funds, about $6 million are salaries.
Can I just interrupt you there for a second?
Yes, sir.
Grants, although they're not part of the foundation budget, we do receive them from the federal government. The total amount of grants that we receive from the federal government is approximately how much?
So in total is about $17 million. And they go, they go in 2 year, 2 year cycles.
Correct. And I think it's important because I know that we had a member of the public also ask regarding grants, and I think that when the new administration, the Trump administration, announced his desire to abolish the education department, people got a little bit concerned about our federal funding. Lawrence, at that particular time, receives approximately $14 million in grants. What's important to understand is the grant cycle at the federal government is different than the funding cycle at the state or the local level. At the local level, we're discussing our budget for the next fiscal year, which is July 1st. However, the federal government's grant cycle is October. So we receive our grants in quarterly payments. We're now going into the last quarter, which will be our last payments of grant funding, and we don't anticipate any decreases in that last quarter. Where we would start to pay attention potentially if there's any reduction would be for the next cycle, which would be October. I think so that being said, I asked the CFO how much of those grants, actually I didn't ask him, he already mentioned, how much of those total grants equals direct salaries for employees. So there's approximately $6 million out of the $14 to $17 million that comes in federal grants that are directly for salary for staffing. So what that means is that, God forbid that we experience a shortage in dollars, our priorities will be to save as many jobs as possible and work toward cutting down on all of the other areas that are support services for our students and our buildings, such as professional development, such as our facilities, such as special ed services, and some of the other services that those grant funding provides for us, okay? So the last piece, if we experience it all the way down to the bottom, it would be at the last $5 million that it probably would affect staffing. I don't anticipate that, and I don't see that. I also know that we have been in meetings with the Department of Education We as a state stand very firm financially that most school districts, through the expanded government auxiliary dollars that is to the tune of $1.4 billion, we can probably supplement a lot of the dollars that some of your major urban communities would experience, okay? So I hope that that clarifies any anxiety that folks might have regarding the federal government and the grants that we receive. But the grants that we receive is totally apart from the budget that we're discussing now, correct?
That is correct. And you know, as of right now, things, you know, status quo remains. One of the things that, Superintendent, we are doing, and you're aware of this, we have engaged with our Director of Grants, and we're trying to find ways, more creative ways of utilizing grants to maximize the benefit, right? Rather than using dollars as we have in the past, how can we use that money to really supplement the things that the kids need based on the priorities that we have set? So that's a conversation that we have ongoing. We had a good meeting late last week, and we're going to continue those conversations so we can maximize these dollars to supplement some of the things that we may be struggling with financially in funding.
Jason, are we at the end of the third quarter? I missed that, I'm sorry.
Are we at the, I'm sorry?
Are we at the end of the third quarter?
Third quarter closed April 30th. What? No, I'm
All right,
sorry.
so have we encumbered that money? Or do we still have money left?
The money that we have left.
She was a principal.
The money that we have left is not going to be there for long, man. We have, and I don't want to get into. So we are doing things a little bit different now, where we are trying to live within our means, right? So the money that we have for this year, we're using this year. I think in the past, and it may have been, I couldn't tell you exactly why, but in the past there was a tendency to roll over, you know, encumbrances to next year, and kind of live. You talked about a quarter, living a quarter behind. So bills were getting paid 4 months in the future. Right now, our bills are not going past 30 days, right? So we're spending today. If we have to pay $150,000 for electricity, we're paying that today. We're not letting 4 months get piled up and then worry about it 4 months later. So the encumbrances that we have, I believe we have about 50. Pretty good with memory. It's about $56 million that we have encumbered as of right now, and we have about
For the next 2 months, actually for a month and a half.
Well, for the next 2 months, we have about 17 million, but I have, we got to pay, there is some stuff that healthcare, there are some things that need to be taken care of. So we're addressing those things now, and I know we're going to make it, you know, throughout, you know, after this year, just fine.
Now here's another question. If we don't spend the money or encumber it in that quarter, does anything have to go back to the feds?
So with the feds, good question. So with the feds, so if we're talking about grants, we get reimbursed, right, by the feds. So we use the money and then we file for a reimbursement. So right now, I'm telling you, we are pulling out everything we got to make sure that that money is spent meaningfully and that we spend it as required by the law. 85% of the title grants, Title I, for example, 85% of Title I has to be spent before September 30th. So Title I, which is our biggest, is about $7 million of the federal funds that come in.
And that covers a lot of salaries too, the title.
Yeah, yes, that's about, of the $7 million, 5 and change go towards salaries. And then we have some that goes towards curriculum and instruction and these academies that we're doing and summer school, yes. So that 85% needs to be spent. So we're making sure, again, one, we continue to get audited. One of the things that I want to make sure is that we spend those funds as required by the law, and that we meet our obligation when it comes to, how much we have to spend by the deadline. And right now we're, like I said earlier, that's one of the conversations that we've been having with our director of grants in talking about how can we leverage our community partners, for example, in utilizing these funds and providing our kids with the best.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers your question, ma'am.
All right, go ahead.
The next slide is just a spending overview. I think we talked about this last time. Salaries continues to be the highest spending, 194 million or so. Benefits, comes next. That's health insurance, Medicare, and dental. Facilities, we have put some funds into facilities, making sure our buildings remain in the shape that they're in, and then instruction, which includes things like some of the contracts and the materials, educational materials that the schools use. Some of the variances, if you can go to the next one.
Jason, I'm sorry. Can you go back to that grant page?
Yes, ma'am. We can go backward. Yes.
All right. You don't have a total, or maybe it's someplace else in the book that I haven't found, but your projection for FY26, is there a total for what you're expecting?
Correct. And so we fund the positions, the years overlap, right? So there are positions that are funded with 2024 grant money and positions that are granted with 2025 money, but they all come from the same grant or from the same title. So when this one expires, we move them to 2026. So for the 24, we still have some funds that we're in the year 2 of the 24. So those teachers and those costs, we move to 26 now. So it's not like they add, if you say, 25, 26 is 14 million, they're overlap and they get used up year over year.
All right, so we have, in the projection, we have 7 different grants that show a variance in the negative, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Minimal, but yes.
Chance that money can be adjusted, or is that etched in stone?
Yes. No, it's not etched in stone. So one of the things that the director of grants does is remember, our population keeps changing on a constant basis. So we try to amend grants on a rolling basis. It's not, there's a deadline for it, but we work on making sure that they know what our population is at any given school, for example, right? Like we do that. We were doing it once a year. We're going to start doing that twice a year. So if a school, for example, gets whatever many number of children, for example, that are English language learners, we can try to amend the grant, submit that, and make sure that we get refunded for that. So that number is not static from the beginning to the end. It changes when you amend based on the population and the new needs that the district may have.
Maybe when all this is settled down and we're into FY26, maybe Chris and you could do some presentation on the grants, because I think that's very interesting. It's something that we should know about.
Yes.
So sometime in the fall, maybe, right, Superintendent?
Yep. So, Jason, I'm following up with the chairwoman. On FY26, it says projection, but we don't have a total of what is the projection. But yet, in FY25, it was 27 million.
No, isn't that
No, no, no.
the ESSER? That's the
Read
ESSER.
it left
Well,
to right.
that's because, okay, so you didn't total them up.
No,
You just
that-
put them by categories.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the 27, I think we had that.
I got you.
Should have
Okay.
fixed, but we're reading left to right.
Suzanne, could you turn these up a little bit?
So Gear Up, Jason, is the support services at the high school for working with families and our senior students moving on to college. They provide grant funding. This year's grant funding was $487,931. Have they not made a commitment yet for the following year?
They do after. We haven't reached that point yet, but we're expecting that. It's a little different than the federal grants, but
We're expecting at least that or more.
yes, correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there is no negative variance on that. No.
That might make a difference.
Yes. Yes.
Yes?
It may make it would make a difference if we didn't get it. Yes. I don't have any signs that point at us not getting it, but we should be getting it.
But we have had good results in the past, right? So there's nothing that says that we should not get it.
No, there's nothing that says that. Gear Up has been a partner of ours for approximately the last 10 years. And they will continue to be. In fact, we've had discussions of them trying to expand down to the 7th and 8th grade. Okay?
Yeah. So no. I don't have a worry about it. I haven't heard anything about it, but the board will be the first one to know. Ms. Mariano, any other questions about the grants, ma'am?
No, I'm done, thank you.
Right. If we can go to
For the
various.
moment.
I'm sorry.
For the moment.
All right. No, I got all night. We're here. If I can go to the variances, yeah. So this is just some things worth noting. As far as increases, we almost $9 million in salaries is what's being projected as far as an increase from 25 to 26. $3 million in some of the instruction stuff like educational supplies, $2 million in professional services, and then for the English for the ML department or multilingual department, their budget is going about 200% up to so it's increasing by $3.3 million just about. So that's for our English language learners. That's something that the superintendent had put on as a priority, and it's something that we're funding very aggressively.
Just as a point of clarification, Jason, so all of these four categories, as you indicated on the chart, are increases.
Correct. All
in
those
the
are
budget.
increases
Okay.
that are more than most.
So I think it's noteworthy, and thank you for simplifying that. Close to $9 million in salaries. That's an increase from our current level of spending. And obviously, we know that we have commitments to our 9 or 10 unions that we've settled with 3 of them, and we still have 7 of them that are outstanding. Educational supplies, obviously professional services, but more importantly, the $3.2 million in expanded services for our multi-English learners, okay?
Yeah, so when you get a chance to look at the book, at the tables, it has if you go to let me see, if you go to page, oh gosh, there is no page number. ML department, the multilingual department, for example, their staffing is going from 8 to 21, right? So that's part of that, $3 million, and that includes professionals that will be assisting the other teacher, the schools and coaches, et cetera, et cetera. So that's, again, one of the areas that is being funded heavily. That is all that I have. I hope you had a chance to look at the tables. I want to say one thing. I want to thank all the principals, all the department heads, everyone who has worked, because it's been a long and difficult process trying to align our priorities with the money and making sure that we're doing it in a responsible way. People, folks didn't get everything they wanted, right? When you go to school planning, folks have great ideas and they come to the table and they ask for what they feel they need. And it's been a difficult process, but everyone has been understanding, and we continue to push through. Yes, sir.
Can I ask you a question, Jason, for the public to understand, and I think the board does? What would you say if you look at the special ed student, ML student, and regular ed student, if you were to find a medium score, not score, expense, what is each student's per pupil expenditure?
Yeah, so a student with no
services would be about 21,900. And if they were ML students?
ML students, you add between 2,800 and 3,000, depending on the grade. Elementary gets 28.
Special ed?
Middle and high, 3,000.
Special ed?
Special ed costs about $32,000.
So is it fair to say, if I was going to just do some rough calculations, if I incorporate all of those together, would it be fair that I say for each student that comes into the district, it'd be about $24,000?
That is a fair statement, yes, sir.
I hate to put you on the spot, but you're the guy, we deals in chelitos and dollars, you deal in millions. I got new to the district 569 brand new students after October 1st that weren't accounted for. How much is that in our new reimbursement for next year?
If it happened after October 1st, zero.
No, but for next year.
Oh, for next year, hold up.
Reading that.
Making me do math. I know about 300 is about $6.5 million, probably, just about.
So with 586 students at 24,000 is 14 million.
I was gonna say 14, wow.
Okay, but there's a reason I say that, because I think that as a superintendent and having neighboring school boards and hearing some of the challenges that they've had, and everybody hears and reads the newspapers, and then they look at Lawrence and they say, Lawrence doesn't have that problem. Lawrence is getting all of this money. When you have 586 new students, most of them coming from out of the country, and they're coming into our school districts, right? And it's $24,000 apiece. Now you can understand why we have an increase to the amount that we have, and why we can put those dollars to work for our kids that need all of those services, right? Whether it's more staff, whether it's more cafeteria individuals, whether it's more paraprofessionals, whether it's more specialized services, whether it's more transportation, correct?
Yep.
So our increase in our budget, let's remember it, because Madam Chair, I'm speaking to the audience out in
TV land.
Yeah, do they still have TVs or Zooms? I'm speaking to that audience that we educate, starting next year, approximately more than 14,000 students with 2,600 staff members. We run a large school district, and in order to meet the needs of our kids, that's why you see the increase in our services. But when you see such large increases, is because of the new students coming into the district after the budget has been set, and we didn't account for those new families that have come into the district. Correct.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure that folks don't think that Lawrence is rich and we have all this money in the world. No. Lawrence guards their dollars and tries to invest it where it needs to be. But we also have to account for all the new families that keep coming and moving into the district.
And you're 100% right. I don't think folks, a lot of people understand that, Superintendent. I think that I understand why the state does it that way, is is accounting. but it doesn't take into account the growth. Again, I think last time we talked about it, only 3 districts have grown larger than Lawrence, right? So while everybody is either remaining the same or going down, Lawrence is increasing by the hundreds, right? And when I look at it and I see, okay, we increased by 300, we're getting 300 students worth of money more this year than last year. With 300 students, I can probably fund, 40 teachers maybe. If we're going to talk about putting teachers, teachers to students.
Staff.
So there is a limit. There is a limit to, in the increase of money, how much money we can put towards some of those things.
Jason, could I ask a question?
Please.
We've been talking about this October 1st report for years. Years and years and years, longer than I've been around, I think. Has anyone approached the state legislature and had some kind of, I know SPED has a circuit breaker. Is there any way we can appeal to the state legislature that either the date gets moved up or at the end of the year, if those kids are still with us, we have a reimbursement from the state?
So I don't know if the superintendent wants to answer that, but the answer is yes. The superintendent has approached, we have approached our senator, our
Representatives.
state representatives, and had long conversations about that very thing. I think he when I say he, I'm talking about our senator for our
How
city.
has the response been?
So I just met with them recently and pointed the challenge that we have, that if they can either amend or change the frequency of funding to allow us to get reimbursements for those new students that we have on a quarterly basis, we would be able to increase financial services for the amount of students that we have coming in throughout the 4 quarters. So
It just makes sense. In a district like this, when you're over 500 kids that enter the district brand new, with many needs, something has to give.
correct.
I agree 100%. That's that's what we have communicated. I think the idea that the superintendent talked about, makes sense when you mention it, right? Instead of once a year, in the beginning of the year, why don't we do it quarterly or 2 times a year or whatever it is, right? So those are the things that we have to work. Some of the guardrails that we have, and we're always in a city where the student population continues to grow, and it grows in a migrant city like ours. It grows exponentially throughout the year. It affects us more than most other places.
Are there any other questions, Madam Chair?
I have generic questions. I don't know if Mr. Cabrera's done. Jason?
No, listen, I'm done. I'm here for your questions, Ms. Garcia, and I believe Mr. De Leon may be out there. I'm here for the questions and
Just for clarity purposes for the public, could you explain to us why there's a version 1 and a version 2?
Version 1 you're talking about the proposed budget.
Yes.
Hopefully we don't get to version 3, but we're ready. So the version, right? When we came here last month, actually, we've been working on this budget for a while now. When we sit down, and I sit down with the assistant superintendents, with the superintendent, with the leadership, with the directors, with the principals, we go through school planning, there is a number that comes up, right? That's the number that if we did everything that we wanted to do for the children, it would cost us this amount of money, right? So that's one number. Then we talked about, based on the formula, the past, the formulas that we've used based on the past. When I say the past, I'm talking about as recent as this fiscal year. there is another number that comes up. So for example, if we wanted to do everything that we wanted to do, it would cost us $313 million. If we wanted to fund every single initiative, give everyone what they want, when I say everyone, I'm talking about the principals and departments. If we give them everything, it would be close to about 313 million is the number. If we fund in a way that is consistent with past practice, that number would have been about 309, right? The city came to us with a number of 305. So here we are, we have a 313, 309, 305. Today, the number is 307. That is, those are the funds that in the superintendent, and talking to the city and negotiating with the city, that's a number that it's doable. It's doable for them, and it works for us to cover the things that we need to cover, right? Not putting shiny stuff on it, but making sure that the kids get everything they need. It's a number that works for us. And that's why we have two versions, Madam Chair. We had three numbers last time. This today, May 14th, I'm presenting to you one number.
All right, so version 2 is the version that we're voting on this evening to go to City Council, correct?
That is correct. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yes, ma'am. And that is the compromise, if you want to call it that, I'll call it that, between the
107 million.
26,144. Yes. That is the 309 and the 305. That's where we're at, in the middle.
All right, now, should the budget pass here this evening, can the principals or have the principals started hiring and filling vacancies?
Yes, the vacancies haven't stopped. We have been filling vacancies constantly, right? During school planning, we came up with a number of positions, right? That's the 313 million. So the 313 million involves a number of positions. But those are new positions, not positions that we have now. So new positions, whatever many they were, will come up to that amount. We're cutting back on some of that while focusing on the things that are priority for this year, right? Early education, English language learners, the things that we're focusing on right now.
Well, I looked at the individual schools, and I was looking at version 1, and I was concerned about administration, where some schools didn't have an assistant principal, and some of the schools with children totaling over 400, let's say.
Yeah. So.
But I've seen in version 2 that that's been adjusted.
It's been adjusted for the most part, right? Every school is going to have the model that has been presented as far as financing that model, right? And when you talk to administration, every school is going to have a principal, every school is going to have an assistant principal, every school is going to have a dean that has to do with whatever it is, curriculum instruction or multilingual services. Those are things that every school is going to have. No school is not going to have an assistant principal. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that we identified this year, we have 4 schools that are the pre-K schools, the pre-K and kindergarten. Those schools never had an assistant principal. For this upcoming year, those schools will have an assistant principal.
Well, the only one I found was the Rollins, and they're under 200 students. So I found that they don't have an AP.
They will have, I believe in our.
Wait a minute.
And again, Madam Chair, we have a lot of some movement still going on as far as where folks are going to go.
Yeah, they have 157 students projected, and a principal, no AP, no dean, but they did increase the 3 teachers.
Mr. Cabrera, let me call on Arlene because that's one of her schools. Rollins?
Yes.
Projected administration.
They will have a principal and a AP.
Assistant principal. An AP, assistant principal.
All right, because it's not listed in the book. Thank you, Arlene.
Yeah, so
So will that be adjusted before it goes to city council?
yes.
Okay.
On the book, yes. The finances, right? The finances remain the same. We're still working with HR. You know, we're doing a lot of things, you know, in HR and making sure that everyone that we have now it's with us. So that is part of the box that has to do with the personnel, right? The teachers.
Now, do we have a date when we go before city council?
May 28th, I believe.
Wednesday, May 28th.
Yeah,
May 28th?
Yes.
Yeah.
I urge parents, staff, take a look at this budget. It'll be on the website, I'm
Yes,
assuming,
yes.
the corrected version.
Yes.
And if you have any questions, please come to that city council meeting. Let's see, I think I've exhausted my time here with you, Jason.
No,
Thank you very much for the answers to the questions.
No problem.
The rest of the board, here's your chance.
Yeah, very quickly on my end, if I can ask, and I'm sorry, I can't see anybody, so I apologize. But I saw that Gear Up in 26 has no funding. I know that the federal government has proposed a budget without supporting Gear Up and TRIO programs. Is that why the 26 doesn't have Gear Up, or is it a decision by you guys to not, like, in terms of Gear Up, which I know a lot of high school students use? What is the decision based on Gear Up?
So, Mr. De Leon, I mentioned because Ms. Califf asked.
Yeah, sorry. I think you mentioned the superintendent. I just couldn't hear you, so I apologize.
Sorry.
I heard the number. But.
So Gear Up has partnered with Lawrence Public Schools through the high school, and you know of their services for the last 10 years. They haven't given us their number of their budget that they're receiving and what the allocation is that's coming to Lawrence. I anticipate that their number for this year that they will be submitting for services for Lawrence Public Schools is going to be higher because of the amount of more kids that have applied and have accepted going on to higher education. But to make a long story short, we're waiting for that number from them because they receive their money through grant funding, obviously whether it's state or federal. So that's why we didn't add that under the grants in the book. But for our intended purposes.
Thank you. I just didn't. Yeah, thank you, Superintendent. I just didn't know if it was one. Okay. I know that the administration, the current Trump administration, is trying to get rid of Gear Up. But I just didn't know if that was us reflecting or projecting that, or if it was them. So I thank you for answering that question.
Okay.
Any further questions from the board?
And the last question I had, and again, I'm sorry because it was in and out in terms of audio, but the jump in salary, is that a natural jump in terms of the people that we have, or is that an anticipation of new hires in terms of the projection that you guys have, that number and that jump in salary and jump in budget?
So
that's just it's just a natural jump that happens annually, or is it an anticipation of new hires given the new students?
No, so the new hires, we're limited on what new hires we can bring, right? And that is, of course, based on funding. I think that even a zero gain will be a win when we look at what's going on around us, right? But the salaries, to your point, let me look at what the salaries go. So, for example, if you look at the actuals if you look at page 11, on the salaries, you look at the 2024 actuals, which goes from, it has a 165 million. For 2025 budget, 186 million was budgeted. So that's a jump of 20 million. Of course, when we talk about salaries, we're talking about all types of compensation, some bonuses, perhaps some stipends,
Right.
those kind of things. So that jump from 24 to 25 went up by 20 million. For next year is going up by 8 million, 7 million. So it is not out of, it's not out of this world. When you consider that for every 1%, for example, our biggest union is the teachers union. For every 1% in their salary, if we increase it by 1%, each percent would be about $1.5 million, right? So
okay.
So you can deduct from there that $1.5 million based on 1%. It adds up fairly quickly.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else?
I have a couple of just quick. You mentioned the memorandum of understanding with the city, and you said that you're in the process of buttoning it up. It needed a little more than that. Like, is there a process to continue negotiating with the city? Are we going to have a new MOU at some point with them? That was a big part of the conversation.
Yeah, the chairwoman knows that I would love to have a new memorandum because she was part of the meeting that we had with the folks at the Department of Education and the Department of Revenue. And I got the bad news that the memorandum of understanding doesn't need to be updated.
Oh, okay.
It just needs to be clarified.
Yeah, I think, Ms. Mueller, as far as that goes, I think it's a matter more of accounting for the right things, and I'll use the word transparency, right? And that's where we're at right now, trying to get that transparency so that we know.
So we can be on the same page at least.
Yeah, correct. Yes, I mean there is a cost of doing business. For this budget here, we kept that number. If you remember in the last one, in the first edition, it was a $4.3 million.
Yeah, it's like half.
In this one here, we have
Back to the original.
the same one as last year. I'm sorry.
We went back to
Yeah,
that.
we went back. Almost a couple $1 million.
No, that's appreciated, but for next year, then at least we'll be on the same page, even if we don't change the document.
We'll do our best.
Yeah. Okay. And this may be a long shot, but we will be in the new buildings next year,
Yes.
fiscal year. So are there any identified savings or efficiencies in the budget on that? Or are we, I'm assuming we do have to spend more in terms of furniture and.
Yep. So all of those costs, Aldana's is here, she works with every subcommittee. All of that has been ordered, and those dollars come through the Massachusetts school building.
Okay.
So all that is part of that massive
okay.
160 million for one school, another 130 for the other, all incorporated.
But in terms of maintenance and just running the operation of the building, do we expect the same?
So our facilities department is getting a bump in their allocation, right? I mean, it's expected, and with that also, if you look at the budget and finance, right, when it comes to things like electricity, heating, fuel,
That has increased.
those kind of things, we increased it by about $1 million, not only because of those buildings, but because the way we were doing it before was not the way that we should have been handling that business. But so we have we have that increase as far as utilities go, and then the budget for facilities was also increased, all with the goal of maintaining the buildings, the older buildings, maintaining them the way that they are right now, and second, for the new buildings to be in top shape. And I know y'all met with some folks about maintenance. So go on.
Good evening, members of the board. I'll add also that for some of the positions too, the increase of some of the positions were accounted for we planned for that early, and as we heard from today's presentation, the positions, that were allocated, we're keeping those. But also, interestingly enough, in terms of electricity, we just took a tour of the Oliver building yesterday, and every day we learn something new, right? So we were going with the team. And in terms of the electricity, the entire building will be electricity. But the interesting part is that every outlet, it's time, it's managed by time. So we can, it will shut off automatically. So it will be cost saving. So if we're plugging in, we're leaving our cell phone charger plugged in, or Chromebooks or computers plugged in.
Never shut them down.
We can actually, yes, program it so it can shut down after a certain time, so it's not generating electricity. So I think, in terms of, the cost savings or seeing some savings, I think there are some measures with, into the build that will probably help mitigate some of that. But I mean, it's a new building. They're 21st century with a lot of, the LED and all the,
Cost savings.
that comes with the new builds.
That's great. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention that I know that last year, all of you in your wisdom, because I remember watching the meeting at the city council, they asked, how come you have 12 new custodians? Those 12 new custodians for those new buildings were in this year's budget.
I noticed too.
And they've been going through the trainings that they need to know on how to service those buildings. So those positions have already been incorporated into the budget, and they move on to the next year's budget. So yes, all of the movement around of facilities and buildings, all of that has been calculated, all within this budget. So we feel very confident that we have a firm budget. All the changes, all the move, everything is incorporated that we can think of.
Thank you. Last thing I'll say is just on the spending overview. I would love to know if 64.5% of the of the budget is going to salaries. Is that within the range, that other districts are spending on their teachers?
Yes. Salaries are always, when you put in salaries and benefits, in any given district, it's going to be between 75 and 83, 82%. So, that doesn't change, much, that range. Right? And even, when we do budgeting, right, we really, all things remaining the same, we have an amount of teachers that is comparable to cities like us, right? So we don't have less teachers than, the other cities. So we have that, and their salaries are, we do have competitive salaries here.
That's great.
Contrary to popular belief, but that adds up. That adds up.
That's just a good measure in terms of, that's where I was going. It's like, okay, are we paying, are we spending the amount that we should be spending in salaries? And it sounds like we're within the range.
It's not uncommon for 80% of an operation to be in salaries.
Thank you.
Anything further, Madam Chair?
Any other questions? Dolores?
I got two very quick ones. I think that there was an attempt last year, if I remember correctly, by the city to say, hey, can we pay some of what the city owes the school system in kind? And it looks like to me like we need every penny possible. And I don't know if you guys are ready for that, but I just want to put it out there that I know there was something that came up last year. But the other question financially that I have is, do we give more money to charters and other type of schools than any other school? Because that was a big amount of money that we also provide. And I know there's a certain amount you have to because of whatever. But like, is that something that because of a responsibility that we give a more amount than maybe other cities do?
We don't actually give more amount than any other cities. We give the amount of what the calculated formula is for our pupil expenditure. Because we have 3 charter schools in the city, Lawrence Family, our Community Day, and Phoenix Academy, what they have for students, for example, in K-8, we have somewhere around 2,200, Maria, what'd you say? Total students?
about 2,400 students. Calculate that times 24,000. That'll get you your number, plus the Phoenix Academy, which probably has about 125 students. So every community that has a charter school, same process. Off their cherry sheet, the charter tuition is calculated, and it's deducted from the community's net school spending, and it gets sent to charter schools. So ours happens to be that 42 million.
Times three? Like times
No,
three?
that's total.
It's 49 million.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I'm sorry, 49 total for the 3 charter schools.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yes.
Dolores?
Well, I was going to say something. Someone told me that on one of the new schools, that they found out that there was no parking.
Whoever told you that told you the truth.
Told me the truth?
They didn't lie to you.
And then what?
And then we pray.
What are you going to do?
Well, I sent O'Donnell's to the city council, and then the residents of the Oliver School and the...
They pray.
No, they come and they do huelga. They come before the city council, and they organize, and they get upset, and it is a challenge that we have, and we have tried to be very transparent with the city, with everyone involved.
But
you have...
Where was I? Was I sleeping when this was?
No, we don't normally think about those things when we're talking about building. Well, but I mean, it took us so long to finally get these 2 schools built. Remember, we've been at this for over 10 years.
I was perplexed. I was like, what's wrong with me? How come I was not aware of this?
Well, to give them a little bit of credit, they did put 25 slots underneath the garage at the new Leahy School.
Correct, Superintendent. That's a really good question, Dr. Calaf. So, we have the 2 new schools. The Oliver School was never intended to have parking, although during the planning stages, right, there were several locations that were presented to the city of Lawrence for potential location to build a school. Including the existing location. And it was determined that based on the location and the need, that the school should stay there, should be built there. However, because of the capacity and because of the population, there was just not feasible for the project to identify any, at least within the build, to identify parking. So we knew from the beginning that the Oliver School would not have any parking as part of the project. For the Leahy, the build is a little bit different. The Leahy originally didn't have, except for maybe same 20 or so spots. So that's the same thing that the new Leahy will have. It's about 25 parking spaces that will be on the side of, not Irvin, but Bruce Street, I believe. So, we have been, in full transparency, and as the superintendent alluded, we have been aggressively having conversations with the city, trying to, figure out opportunities or ways in which we can find some solutions. And still a lot of conversation is happening, and a lot more conversation that we hope to have some real concrete next steps for when we start the school year next year.
O'Donnell, I just had a thought. Has anyone approached the owners of the 101 building on Amesbury Street? It's that, when you come down Amesbury Street, it's that blue and white building on the left.
Oh, yeah, no, I know which building, Chairwoman Mariano. So we have explored, we have met with city departments, including the planning department and others on the city. Like I said, it has been a 7-month long process in terms of coming to the table and having conversations around what's available, what can we, what can the city, what can we do to work together to mitigate, including the parking meters, right? Then, not only it's the the constraint of parking, but then the city also implemented parking meters in locations where there were never parking meters before. So that also then lessened the available parking spaces that folks around the North Common or the old high school were able to access. So a lot of conversations still pending with the city.
So maybe come our June meeting, you could come back with what's happened so far in preparation for the new school's opening.
Sure, we'll be happy to provide an update.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'd like to go back to the budget. Any further questions on the budget? Zoomers?
Good?
No question.
Go ahead, Arlene.
She said no question.
What?
She said no question.
She said no question? All right. I'd like to entertain a motion that the LAE approve the FY 2026 budget version number 2 with adjustments discussed this evening for a total of $307,026,144. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Maria. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further questions? I'm going to just remind the board that make sure all your questions have been answered this evening. This is the version, excuse me, that will go to the city council. Okay, hearing none. Maria, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion passes. I want to thank you, Mr. Cabrera, for all you've done to answer all our questions and provide information for us.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
And for the last 4 months of your life.
Yes. Now you can sleep.
Yeah, thank you, Jace.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, for that vote.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the facilities rental, and Odanis will come up and explain what we have.
At this stage of the game, we're still renting.
Our busiest time of the year, Superintendent. Good evening. Odanis Hernandez, again, Chief of Operations. We do have one rental that we're presenting to you tonight. It's for Radicals USA. It's a dance company, and they're looking to do their dance recital on June 26th at the Gilmet School Auditorium from 8 to 10. So it's kind of like an all day because they'll come in, rehearse, and then they'll do the show. And we present this to you with a favorable recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Adonis. I'll entertain a motion to approve the facilities rental at the Gilmet School for a dance recital. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Maria. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. Maria, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion passes. Thank you.
Can we say thank you for coming to the meeting?
Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the board on April 9th. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Any omissions or corrections?
I'm not sure, but I thought.
I need a second, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just have a quick question.
Second.
I think
All right,
Mayor
go ahead.
DePena wasn't at the meeting in April. Was he not present at the meeting in April?
I was here. So I moved.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
March.
Was it March?
It was March.
All right, apologies then. So I would just double check, that's all.
All right, any other questions? Maria, please call the roll.
I abstain. I wasn't in that meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Next, we have the minutes from the budget hearing that was held on April 9th. Could I entertain a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion to approve?
That's small one.
Second? Thank you. Any further discussion?
God, it's such.
Arlene, do you have something to say?
No. Sorry about that.
Okay. Hearing none, Maria, please call the roll.
Yes.
Hey, I abstain.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, at this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to the superintendent for his reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I would ask for the members of the board to allow me to change up the report, only because we have Dr. Pena on Zoom and 2 or 3 of her teachers are here. If you recall, we had Dr. Pena come and present the professional development immersion program of approximately 10 teachers that we had go and visit the Dominican Republic. That happened during our April vacation. And at the time that we presented to the board, we asked Dr. Pena to come back and report as to the experience that they had and to give a quick overview of that experience. So I'd like to call on Dr. Pena. She's on Zoom. Suzanne, if you can put her up and take it away. I think she's going to introduce a couple of the members of our faculty that went on the professional development immersion program also. Dr. Pena, can you hear us?
She's looking for it.
Yes, I can. Good evening, everyone.
We're just interested in the temperature right now, where you're at.
Say that again?
We're just interested in the temperature where you're at. Where are you, by the way? We never know.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Say that one more time.
Where are you located today?
Where are we located now?
Yes.
I just flew,
where you are.
Yeah, I just flew into Miami.
Oh.
Ay, pobrecita.
So you're all invited for a Cuban sandwich in Miami.
Okay, take it away. You have members of your team here.
Thank you. I'm going to just share my screen and going to just give a little foundational conversation overview to frame what our educators will share in a moment. But thank you for having us back this evening, to our members of the Lawrence Alliance for Education and our colleagues in the Zoom room and in the physical room. I know it's a long evening and we appreciate you being here with us to hear about our program. If you remember in that meeting, we talked about an immersion program. I'm going to kind of jump a little ahead. That was focused on culturally responsive teaching. Jen Perry started that conversation in March at the last meeting we were at, looking at the DESE requirements that were changing and how DESE and LPS were intentionally integrating this framework of culturally responsive teaching in our resources, as well as in our evaluation rubrics, not just sprinkling the terms, but again, really intentionally changing how we do things. And so we build a program around around that using funds of knowledge. We wanted to learn from students through immersions, from families, because our students and their families are just this rich cultural and intellectual resources that we can learn from to really teach better in the classroom, to teach foreign to our students. And so we went on a journey to do that. So before the journey, we presented when we were in the pre-trip phase. So our teachers didn't just get on a plane and go to Dominican Republic and tour, learn the culture. We prepared. We talked to students. We met with families. We learned from them. We looked at our teacher identities. We analyzed our biases and what our students needed in the classroom. And then we went on the journey together to really try to learn as much as possible to impact change in the classroom. So a quick overview of what we did. We entered the Dominican Republic through Santo Domingo, and our trip was really about cultural immersions, time in the schools, learning the curriculum, understanding the educational structure, learning where we can bridge any gaps or make connections between the two systems, because the U.S. is the U.S. and every other country, it's every other country. And so we got to make sure that we understand where our students are coming from and that we can teach and help them connect to where we are in the curriculum. So as part of that, we came in through Santo Domingo. We started with a lot of the history of the music, the history of the food, religion. We went before Christopher Columbus. We were looking at Taínos and that rich history that we don't talk enough about in terms of the Dominican Republic that we can bring back to our students. Then we made our way to El Cibao, to La Vega, Santiago, Tenares, where we really immersed ourselves in the schools. We learned the curriculum of the country. We looked at how directors disseminate that curriculum to educators. We sat in classrooms. We met with teachers. We even taught some students ourselves and sat in groups with them. We, outside of the schools, we did community walks. We spoke with families in the communities. We ate lunch in their homes. We really immersed ourselves to gain the most that we could out of this. And then we continue our way to Puerto Plata, where we continue our learning. And a lot of that was more on the exports. So we did look at tobacco companies, and the cigar factories. In Puerto Plata, we looked at rum and tourism. We also learned about chocolate, which is another big export. And we did that in Santo Domingo, actually, but it's across the country. So we really took advantage and went from the south to the north to learn as much as we could to wrap everything around in terms of our classes. We curated just a few pictures. I promise you have a lot of great content on social media. There'll be a great YouTube episode coming out, but I know you're probably wondering, what did this look like? And so here's one where we're looking at the report card and we're looking at how grades are analyzed and the communications. We're looking at curriculum. We're looking at their new longer day and their separation of the grade levels. Things have changed over there, which impacts the students who are transitioning over now. So they divided the 12 grades into 2 6th grade school systems, and they work in cycles, 3-year cycles. So we really looked at all of that, working with curriculum specialists. We learned about support services, schools that do have access to psychologists. How do they work with students on the autism spectrum? What special education services do they have? We try to understand all of that, as well as social emotional. I know Juana might be there in the audience, so, but we looked at a lot of the social emotional support for our students, working with the schools and what they were doing. We looked at classrooms. We sat in classes to understand the structure of the day, to understand how students learn in a traditional Dominican Republic school, and really get a good sense of the day-to-day there. Sometimes we taught as well. And so here one of us, Juan, actually is reading to the students and working with the students. And then we all got to do that. We all got to participate in small group activities. We got to do shares with students. We got to support student activities. The theme in this school was on conserving the planet, taking care of your planet. And that was across all grade levels. And so here were the little ones creating their own planets and just teaching those lessons and working with the schools and really understanding how education works there by not just learning the curriculum, but then the application all the way through all the different levels. So just a few more photos before I transition over to our educators. Besides the schools, we also worked with a few nonprofits, and one of them was the Pedro Martinez Foundation, which is also present in Lara. And so we appreciated this opportunity and looked at schools as community hubs or centers. And so here is their dentistry room where they provide that service. Here is the kitchen where they teach people who are good in the kitchen at home to turn that into a skill set and to be able to sell entrepreneurship, sell what they make. So looking at the family academy or parent academy side of things. And this is the tutoring center where they also offer after school programming for students. And this is the site where they're building their new educational complex in Santo Domingo. So by learning from them on the community side as well, we were able to get that wraparound look of education and how nonprofits come in to support the educational journey. So that's a little bit of what we did, just framing the conversation. Who you really want to hear from are fabulous educators. They're there working with students now. They experience the culture, the warmth, the pride, the resilience, and the deep commitment to education and family out there in the Dominican Republic and have brought this back. So I'm going to call each person one at a time to speak. And then please, I don't know if, because I can't see the stage, I'm thinking that the best thing I should do is just stop after this piece and after each person and just see if you have any questions before I move to our first educator / presenter. I think we're okay.
Okay. We can move on.
So our first.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. First, we have Brianna Johnson. I'm just going to turn it over to her. She's going to talk about what she learned from the experience.
Good evening, everyone. As Jackie stated, I'm Brianna Johnson. I feel very honored to be able to share what I'll call an excerpt of what I learned, because I need a lot more than a few minutes to truly share everything that I took home with me. So first I want to start with a little bit of like why I chose to go on this journey. I come from California and I was very immersed in more Mexican Central American culture. I came to the East Coast and I definitely felt out of place and like I struggled to make connections with my students who are from the Dominican, Puerto Rico, in areas I wasn't familiar with. So when this opportunity came up, I was like, this is the perfect way for me to actually deepen my understanding and actually like walk the streets and eat the food and experience the culture and the richness of the country the majority of my students come from. So going from that, my first impressions, from the moment we arrived in Dominican Republic, we were immersed in a vibrant energy. And I mean, starting from the airport. The warmth of the people was immediate. The streets were filled with vendors and you could hear music that was prominent in the ambiance. The locals flocked to the streets to enjoy like the fresh air. And it was really apparent that allí se vive con el corazón. Like everything is like from the heart. And I really feel like this impression and this vibrancy kind of set the tone for the rest of the trip for all of us. And so now I'm going to break it into kind of the educational side that I saw and then kind of the socioeconomic piece. So visiting the schools in the Dominican Republic really offered a profound and personal window into the educational experiences that many of my students and their families have gone through and experienced. I did witness, overcrowded classrooms, outdated materials, but that didn't hinder the experiences that the students were receiving. And within that, the passion that the educators held for their students, for education, for just a holistic approach to education was really heartwarming to see that it doesn't take a lot of money to give an everlasting experience in school. Now, with that, the holistic piece, there's lunches provided. That's part of also trying to ensure that there are higher attendance rates and students are coming to school to get food and like spend their days there. There are also aspects where they're required to have psychologists, but unfortunately, due to various aspects, That's not always possible. So even though it's a requirement, it's not always being held to full fruition. Some important points. There's definitely a strong cultural belief in education and as that being a pathway to opportunity. Whether I spoke with locals or people within the schools or vendors on the streets, it was a common theme that I encountered. Also, the discipline practices emphasize more of like a structure and care approach as opposed to a punishment approach. So it's very about speaking to the whole child and not punishing a child for their choices or their behaviors. And that literacy and environmental awareness were very strongly emphasized in the curriculum. And then looking at the university system, just real quick, it's interesting that there are financial opportunities provided to students who want to go to public universities, but once they graduate, finding a job is very difficult unless you are properly connected. And so this just made me think about how our students and families are maybe driven to come here to maybe seek other opportunities. And they're coming here with these degrees and this experience, but they're never able to really put that into practice, even though they've put all of this effort into it. Then kind of jump into the socioeconomic piece. So while the Dominican Republic is rich in beauty and cultural pride, my immersion experience also revealed the socioeconomic challenges that do persist. So particularly in the rural areas, but yet amidst like these hardships, I saw such emotional strength, perseverance, and this pride within the community that was not affected by this. Community members made the most of what they had and demonstrated an unwavering sense of dignity and hope. This contrast between material poverty and like a spiritual richness really helped me better understand the resilience of a lot of my families and students and kind of reflect on how we typically in the United States kind of view materialism as like a form of success when that doesn't always equate to success in other places. Yeah, and just that ability to thrive and making anything out of nothing, seeing people with little stands on the side of the road, selling coffee in front of their house, just finding any type of means to bring income into their homes. I just felt that that was very empowering. What I learned in all was that fundamentally, I feel the way that I view my students and my families has drastically shifted. It has taught me that cultural context is very essential, not just to understanding the student behavior, but to truly reaching them as learners and individuals. I no longer simply know my students as like Dominican. I've seen where they've come from. I've shared meals in their communities, and I've listened to the stories of people who come from those communities, and I feel so much more deeply connected to my students. It was very powerful also coming back and having staff members and parents and students be like, I saw you on Facebook. My mom showed you were in my town. That's where, or you were where my grandma lives. And the fact that I didn't even have to make those connections just by me making this effort, students and families and other staff members were able to make those connections, and it brought them such joy, which then brought me more joy, and really solidified the purpose of this program and the purpose of this experience, to bring this culture back to our schools and provide our students and families with the best experience possible. Because I know it's kind of running over, but just kind of looking at ahead, I really want to push to bring more cultural pieces into our curriculum. Although our curriculum itself may not contain those, I want to challenge myself to find those connections and find those alternate activities or videos or stories, and also create spaces where my students can be storytellers and share their history, their culture, what they know about their country, what they love about their country, if what we're learning has any connections to their experiences in their life and their families. So just my final thoughts. Yes. This trip truly changed me, not only as a person, but as an educator. It deepened my empathy, sharpened my cultural awareness, and renewed my commitment to honoring the whole child. Students are more than just test scores and curriculum. They are people with backgrounds and wealth of knowledge and emotions, and so much to contribute to our communities. And really seeing that, like, this isn't just about travel, this experience. It's about listening deeply, honoring lived experiences, and growing in ways that make our classrooms and our communities more inclusive, compassionate, and affirming. We teach better when we know better. And this experience has reminded me just how important it is to see, hear, and celebrate each student, their families, and everyone that comes along with them for who they truly are. Thank you so much.
Nice.
Thank you. I'll pause for questions, and as you think of any questions, if you have any, we will transition now to talk about what happens next, both at the school level, classroom school level, and then district level in terms of coaching for other teachers.
I have a question, but I actually want to hear that part of it because it actually may answer the question. I'm interested in sort of the day-to-day now that someone like Brianna has gone through a trip and now is coming back to teach in terms of her curriculum and thinking overall of our kids. So you may answer it now with what you're presenting.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. And then please keep asking more questions if we don't answer that or you have deeper questions around that. Once our next two speakers present, definitely ask away. But the what's next, and we just got back a couple of weeks ago, so we're thinking through the big changes, but I'm going to turn over to Suzanne. She's going to show Leah. Leah recorded herself talking about what they're already planning for what's next in the classroom and at her school with a couple of her colleagues from this experience.
Hi, my name is Leah Banks Bruno. I am an 8th grade math teacher and special education teacher at Spark Academy. And I've been reflecting a lot since we returned from the trip on how I can take the knowledge that I got and the experiences I had and actually put it into action in my school. And I think there's a couple different levels to this, but in the immediacy, the folks that I went on the trip with, Emily and Will, and I have been working and talking with our principal about how we can change orientation for teachers next year and professional development to sort of educate some teachers who are unfamiliar with Dominican culture, or some teachers who maybe are Dominican, have grown up there, but are unfamiliar with the Dominican schools, on some of the things that we saw and experienced. In my eyes, this would look like a professional development series where people are receiving the information that they need. Again, we're not over-explaining to people who already know, but we also need to make sure that a lot of our educators have a base level knowledge of where a majority of our students and families are coming from. So a big thing that I would like to change in my school is education around Dominican culture, and then also just a brief overview on the experience in schooling that a lot of our students receive. We saw a lot of positives and a lot of differences in how the students learn, and specifically as a newcomer teacher, I think it's important that I continue to work with our language learners and our students who are just arriving and the teachers who see them to make sure they understand some of the cultural differences students might be experiencing coming directly into the classroom. Another big thing that we want to do is ensure that we are providing family nights and structures that feel authentic to our community. We saw that the Pedro Martinez Foundation was really a cornerstone and a foundation of their community, and that people really respond to that, right? They want there to be somewhere that they go in order to receive services. They want to trust that they know that when they go there, it is a place where they will receive good information, good support, and all that stuff. And I would like to see our schools, because they are part of the community. I am looking at houses right now from where I sit. Like, we are very much nestled right in the neighborhood. And I would like parents, family members, and everybody to feel like this is a place, like a free and open place where there's an exchange of information, ideas, and resources. The final thing that I'll say is that this has really highlighted a need for me for collaboration across the district between educators. And so I really do hope that one big takeaway from this trip will be the increased collaboration between educators in Lawrence, so that we can make sure that we're all serving our students the best. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and thanks again for all your support with the trip.
Sounds good.
Thank you. And so Leah shared a little bit about what they're already looking and planning to do in her school. And this is just the beginning of the planning component. And now we have Flor, who's in the room physically, to talk more district-wide in terms of coaching for other educators as an ML coach at LPS.
Wow, we have a live body.
Yes, in person. Excuse me if I get nervous. So piggybacking on, my name is Flor Dilenia Then. I am the expert educator for the ML department at the district level. So I'm going to piggyback on what Leah said, that importance of collaboration. And I gotta say, this initiative couldn't have been as meaningful if I wasn't in a bus most of the time with such great collaborators that were so reflective in all the learnings and being open-minded and willing to tackle anything that was thrown at us. So I gotta say, first and for all, the collaboration is such an important piece. So with this, we're in the beginning stages of planning, but I do have a plan for my coaching and PDs that's my main responsibility for the district. So in my coaching, I want to start a focus area with this culturally responsive practices, where in the first stage, we build awareness. First, we have to check our biases, right? We can do things like the implicit bias test that IAT, the Harvard's made. That's a good place to start, just to start thinking about our own biases. We can start with cultural snapshot sharings and thinking about what assumptions we make of different cultures, the danger of a single story that's available on TikTok, and then the cultural iceberg that we teach in SEI as well, that we can have a discussion about surface and deep culture aspects. So that's where I want to start with the people I coach. First, building awareness, stage 1. Then stage 2, and then knowing our students, building relationships by asking the questions, hey, what do you like to eat? What do you do? And just letting students know that what they have to share is interesting to us, so we can start building that relationship. We also want to do student and parent surveys that talks a little bit more, or ask questions about their cultures, their needs, their wants, and where they're coming from. Another thing that I want to create for the district is cultural resources, like cultural briefs and books that are easily available for all teachers. I know in the past, when I get a new student, I have to go buy a book about that specific culture that maybe I don't know a lot about. So like as educators, we're so busy, it would be nice to have a library of all these resources. I'm currently working on those cultural resources available to make it available for everyone. I'm not sure what's happened to the home visits initiative, but that was such a great way to get to know our parents in a deeper way. And I want to keep promoting that and adding an additional piece to the home visits that has to do then we sit down and we collaborate and we reflect on what we are seeing. Okay, and then through those home visits, I want to empower our parents to feel like an asset to our community, to feel that they have something to share. They can teach us how to make mango. They can teach us how to dance. They can teach whatever they want to, but empowering them, then they don't have this feeling of, I'm a burden. No, I'm an asset. I have something to share and teach you. So that's stage 2 in my little plan here that I'm drafting. And the last part is definitely making curriculum and planning more culturally responsive through, first of all, now that we've built all this knowledge of our students and built awareness of our biases, now we can start including some familiar cultural references in our lessons, which I know I'm Dominican, so I can do this in and out as I am teaching. So now if we can build this in everyone, then we are able to do it more, we don't have to do so much work to try to include those references.
You're gonna work smarter instead of harder.
Then also including more, planning more collaborative learning where students are doing more collaboration, more talking, because we know our cultures definitely are very strong on that oral piece. Sometimes not so much in the reading and writing, but we love our stories. We love to sit around our grandparents and have them tell us stories, and that's an important part of the Dominican culture, and hopefully we can bring that more into the classroom. When we audit materials that we are using to teach, thinking through whose stories are being told here and who is missing, so that we can look for those extra resources and include the voices that might be missing to give our students a diverse perspective, to be well-rounded. And lastly, inviting students' voice in the classroom to ensure we ask them, how did I make you feel valuable in this classroom? What things did I do to encourage your learning? And if we ask those questions of the students, I think we will get genuine responses that will guide the way we are teaching them and what we do in the classroom. I want to invite all the coaches in our district, because this is hard to do in isolation. It's a lengthy plan, right? It's hard to do in isolation. So it would be nice if we have an initiative district-wide, now that you've spent all this money on us, right? District-wide, and all our coaches that we, in the district, or that we contract out, like impact coaching, that one of our focus areas could be cultural responsive practices, and we can maybe help develop a plan like this with all of our coaches. That's my plan. Thank you.
Wow.
Can I?
Dr. Pena, the board wants to ask questions.
Can I add something?
Go ahead, Dolores.
Yes, I was going to say that one of the things that I used to do as part of cultural aspects was the whole oral history piece is to, as part of cross-cultural communication, was to ask the children, to ask the grandparents to tell their stories, right? And write about them. And this is a way that will help them to learn about the cultural proud of where they come from. And instead of they thinking that because that one of the things that I used to think was that sometimes children felt like they were not from here, or they didn't feel that they were from here or from there. You see, they were kind of in limbo. And by doing that, they sort of were able to identify, culturally speaking, as well, with not only being part of here, but also carrying that cultural background from the family. And that way, it carries this pride, right, from the family.
As a result, it builds self-esteem.
Exactly.
And if you have self-esteem, you develop independence. And as you develop independence, you feel secure in taking risks, which is what we want our kids to do in learning and practicing what they've learned.
So it's a plus rather than a less.
Yeah. Thank you.
I don't know if I missed it, but how many staff members attended?
Yes, we had 11 educators from LPS, mostly classroom teachers, plus Floor, our ML expert teacher coach. And we also had a data coach with us. And then we have one of those educators just transitioned to a coaching role in her institution at Spark. And then Juana, who focused on the social emotional piece at Leahy. So 11 total, but you can see how their work overlaps and reaches across different levels within the district.
Thank you. Any further questions?
So if I could go back to my question now, Brianna, as a teacher, in terms of your day-to-day and what you learned, what are you bringing to your students now that you took this trip?
See how their work overlaps just across different levels within the district.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I was going to answer Edgar's question. So for me, my biggest piece is actually bringing this to the other educators that I will be mentoring. Most of my colleagues don't speak Spanish. Gracias a Dios que yo hablo español. So like I want to make sure that my colleagues have an understanding of how to approach students, whether or not there's a language barrier, and to find ways to connect to students and to use, as somebody mentioned a moment ago, their stories and their experiences and things that they've been through as a way through connecting. So finding ways to use visuals to share about a student's experiences, or using visuals to show their understanding of the content. And finding multimodal ways for our students to be expressing themselves and expressing their understanding of our content, which also includes utilizing translanguaging as an acceptable form of assessment and showing a grasp of the content that we are presenting. And then also just really understanding that, so what I noticed in classrooms was that literacy was a very big focus. And so within the first 6th grade band, the first cycle, which is our like 1st to 3rd grade, if a child has not mastered literacy skills, they are actually kept back because there's a strong understanding that if a child doesn't have strong literacy skills, their success is going to be minimized. And so kind of how do we find that balance of providing our students that time to process and kind of adapt and acquire those skills while also in this fast-paced system that we have of just kind of trying to push as much as we can into a day. And again, bringing that to my mentees and kind of understanding that their way, our newcomers, their way of receiving education is very different than what we expect. Students were walking around classrooms. Students didn't have to raise their hand to go to their friend's house, or their friend's desk, my apologies. So Edgar, if I wanted to come borrow your sharpener, I didn't have to raise my hand and say, can I please go ask Edgar for a sharpener? It was just accepted to do so. And so bringing those connections to our educators to know our kids aren't getting up to be disrespectful. It's just something that culturally they are used to and is ingrained for their understanding of what an educational system is. And I could go on, but those are just some quick ways of like how we can recognize where our students come from, make those connections and kind of close those gaps between their educational experiences and kind of how our system works, to help them thrive and feel as successful and like welcomed as possible. Does that answer your question, Edgar? Yeah.
It does, and my friends do have to raise their hand if they want to come over to my house, but I do appreciate what you're saying. Thank you.
Any more questions?
If no other questions, Madam Chair, I just have a couple of comments.
Go ahead.
First of all, I want to really thank the team, the teachers, that took the time out of their schedule to take the risk to go and immerse themselves in what their students are about. I think that in hearing all three presenters, you really paid attention and came back reinvigorated. I want to say, Brianna, you and I think it was Leah, the second teacher, more or less transformed. Remember, we talked about a transformative experience, and how reflective you've come back. To our coach, you have a tall task ahead of you, but I think you're up to it. And it really has enriched and deepened the work that we know that we have ahead of us for the type of student body that we have. Brianna, I'm going to steal two things from you because you'll see them in writing again. I'll just add to the first one, aquí se vive con el corazón y aquí se educa con pasión. Okay? And the second one, which is really, really powerful, and that is we teach better when we know better. That speaks volumes of what our faculty and staff really should focus on. Okay? So I want to also congratulate and thank Dr. Pena for the amount of work that you put in and the team that you assembled here. The process of finding these educators was incredible. And because of that process is why you had the quality of teachers that we have. And speaking of quality of teachers, I know it's a prelude and I shouldn't yet, but I got a chance to talk and see some of our access scores testing. Your jaws will fall when they come before us at the next meeting. I dare to say Lawrence Public Schools is probably one of the highest results in the state of Massachusetts. And that is a tribute to the work that all of you have been doing and continue to do. So congratulations and thank you, and we look forward to many more opportunities to see you lead this district in helping our kids. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just a thank you to you, Ralph, and the whole team for helping make this a possibility, and really just allowing us as educators and as a part of this Lawrence community, like an insight to something that we would have normally experienced, especially at this capacity. And I just feel very blessed and honored to be able to bring this back with me. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're getting through real quickly. I only have two other things. Update, and I know that at our last board meeting, Madam Chair, I brought the board my mid-year evaluation, and I understand that a vote is not required, but I love to hear from anyone, if you had a chance to review it, where we're headed, what I'm doing, what's incredible about this school district. But I want you to know that in highlighting some of the things that I think that are really essential, that I think that we've seen lots of progress, is a real commitment from the district of really helping our teachers in each one of our buildings really understand what the MTSS system is about, the multi-tier system of support. When we embrace that, and we're starting to see that in several of our schools, our principals are saying, wow. They're seeing the results within our internal assessments, and that's because they're able to hone in and key on what our students' needs are, okay? That's taking form. The incredible talents that our students have that I highlighted a little bit on my mid-year report, and as a result, the Visual Arts Academy that we will be launching next year. Again, across my desk, our kids are breaking every kind of accolade and record. I forgot what is the, Jen, help me, what is the latest that our kids took away just about every award? No.
In Florida?
Just recently, we saw an email. All of our performance, again, were top tier. There had to be a dozen of them. The Tammy Awards? Yes, the Tammy Awards. So it is amazing. Rightfully so that we have a performing arts academy, and that takes a lot of work, but I think we've done the work. Our autonomy framework needs some work. And what we're seeing in the research is, while we can support what autonomy is about, it really doesn't jive well for multilingual learners. And I think that we have to make some adjustment there. The staff, professional development, and really understanding the latest with QTEL that we're going to put together in our district. I've addressed some of the major challenges that we have with our ML population, and that's those life students. That's an acronym for the students that are coming into our district from out of the country that have had breakage in education. They're coming to us, especially the upper grade students coming in at 7th and 8th grade, but yet they're functioning at the 2nd grade. The misconception that they're special ed, when in fact they had a breakage because of the pervasive poverty from the countries that they're coming from. So we're going to examine that, and how do we intensify support services for them to give them a chance, while allowing our teachers that are working with students that are on grade level to really emphasize and push those students. And I think that that's essential for our student population, considering the fact that 7,800 of them are multilingual learners. We're going to give our kids an exceptional opportunity to be on grade level. Research says that if we can keep a student on grade level par through the 3rd grade, 95% of them will graduate from high school. And you know that. So our expanded investment of putting the 4-year-olds to a full day kindergarten and exposing them to that curriculum. We capture the ones that didn't make it in the first year by the 2nd year. So by the time they all go to 1st grade, they're reading on grade level. And particularly if they're bilingual. We have done an incredible job in retaining diverse educators, and not so much recruiting them on the outside, but the work that's happening through our Pathways program for our paraprofessionals and our aspiring administrators. I showed our chairwoman the multicultural book that our paraprofessionals at the University of Massachusetts Lowell put together. This is an incredible, incredible book that our own, not teachers, soon-to-be teachers, put together that we will distribute around our classrooms for our teachers to use. Very, very proud of them. Last but not least, our parent engagement. All areas of our parent engagement have experienced an increase in parents. Our divorced people, we average 70 to 80 people there. Our coffees, Maria helps me run those. We have across the districts parents constantly coming online with us. And our LPAC, we had to move it from the Lawrence Public Library to the cafeteria at the Old Common because we couldn't fit them all in. The last time we were at the library, we had close to 300 families participating. So all of those things were reflected in my progress report that were priorities that we put there as goals, and I feel comfortable that we're in the right direction, and we should be able to finish the school year on a very positive note. Last but not least, Madam Chair, around the district, there we go. I wanted to let you know that I participated in our Special Olympics. That was last Thursday. It was a beautiful day. Our kids were rambunctious in all of the school buildings because it rained for the first 3 days. Try telling kids that they can't go out. So we held, but God gave us Thursday, and we had 800 Special Olympic students, okay, at the South Lawrence Seas, at the high school, and they had just an incredible, incredible time. We had over 100 volunteers from New Balance, one of our partners, that really, really helped. Our accelerated academies this past spring, April, if you could see that our kids were engaged in doing fun stuff within our school buildings. I think we had about 2,500 of them, Jen, right? All over the district during our vacation. They had quality enrichment that I think is important for our kids. As one of our guest speakers mentioned, the Pedro Martinez Foundation. Pedro is an incredible speaker. He was an incredible pitcher, but he's becoming an incredible motivational speaker, especially for the young population and our kids. The fact that he came and brought Tufts University, focusing on health, the fact that our educators went to the Dominican Republic and partnered with his foundation, We're having more conversations about partnerships, and he's committed to the city of Lawrence and wants to stay within the city of Lawrence and working with our families. The rest of the places there, you had the lieutenant governor come to talk to our kids at the Gilmet. We had our arts presentation across the district. On that bottom, you see those are our paraprofessionals that just finished their a para course en route to become teachers. I think one more year, we have that whole group coming up. We have like a 95% rate passing in the classes, so they're really motivated. And of course, at the high school, you can't keep up with them. Our cheerleaders won competition at Hershey Park, Pennsylvania. Our parent university, over 80 parents graduated from training, okay, this past month. And our students on the bottom, I forgot which ones these are, our 9th grade students going into 10th grade, choosing their pathways of what they're going to do for next year, the bottom. Obviously, our valedictorian this year is going to Brown University, and Brown University got a twofer. They got an exceptional academic student, and they got an exceptional athlete, all right? So he came, we had a nice ceremony, and he signed to a full scholarship to Brown University in the fall. Our Teacher Appreciation Week, we tried to demonstrate how much we appreciate them, from candy, food trucks, food, and then more food. So just want you to know that. Last thing's coming up. We're finishing up our questionnaires for our families that help drive what the changes are going to be for next year. Our last Divorce Council is going to be also in this coming month, and we'll be wrapping up and asking them to talk about what do they want to talk about for next year, right? And obviously, we have the district music concert that's tomorrow at 4:15 and at the Common outside. And our multilingual parent meeting is the last one is May 21st. And graduation, I believe, Maria, did we send invitations yet?
Yeah.
Everybody knows where we're at, so I think we have probably one of the largest graduating class, close to 900 this year. Overall, Madam Chair, I think we've had an incredible month, and we've had an incredible year with a lot of positive attention on what's happening in Lawrence Public Schools. That's my report.
I say it every time, excuse me, we should be shouting from the rooftops how great our kids are and how successful they are. And perfect example is one student going to an Ivy League school like Brown University on a full boat. I mean, that's amazing. That's the news that we need to keep sharing with the community. And thank you, Superintendent, for all your hard work. Any comments on the superintendent's presentation? No? Dolores?
Briefly, I think, Superintendent, from all this time, what would you say has been the most challenging piece for you?
Being patient.
Money.
You want everything in 1 week.
Yeah, transitioning from a small school district to a large school district, and knowing that, so I used to drive a fast boat. Now I run an aircraft carrier. And from the top, in order to make it turn 5 degrees starboard, you got to communicate with 22 individuals all the way down to the engine room. Same thing at the superintendent's office. From here, have discussions, go back to the superintendent's office, meet with the leadership team, devise a plan, call Chris, how do we communicate, then talk to the assistant superintendents, how do we execute? So that takes a little bit of time. And I've learned that I need to be a little bit more patient. I want to see the improvements right away, because I think we have been, shafted, because, as you said, Madam Chair, the skills and the talents and the teachers that we have, It's easy when Lawrence is the finger pointing that we're at the bottom. No longer is Lawrence at the bottom. Lawrence is the school district that they're looking at for future. And you see that with the amount of kids and families we have coming in here. And it's our turn. So I think it's important that we celebrate that.
Okay.
But other than that, I've reinvigorated myself. I love the work that I do. I should have moved on to retiring. They're trying to negotiate with me as I'm trying to help find someone for the near future.
No,
But in the
you're not
meantime,
you're not going anywhere, okay?
strategic plan is up and running. The subgroups, when we've met together, all of them, it's incredible, the work. And I include the parents. The ESR team mentioned, wow, this is an incredible school district. How parents are in tune to actually what the needs of the kids are, what's going on, what their aspirations are, the teacher's voice and leadership. So the last piece of the puzzle, Madam Chair, I have no control of, and that's a new governance board. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed.
Well, yeah, that's
and
another
we'll
story.
get through.
We will. We're on a good pathway here.
Thank you.
One last presentation or brief report from Chris Markins on the policy subcommittee.
Okay.
Be as brief as we possibly can, Chair. We had a fantastic meeting on Monday. The chair joined the working group. It was very nice to have her there. We sort of we talked about the entire process up to this point, how we got here in terms of the policy process to this date, and we discussed sort of where we wanted it to go from here. I think the consensus was, driven to her credit by the chair, that it was really important to re-engage with the subcommittee and that they be involved heavily in this work moving forward. So I think that is our next step, is to sort of work with the board to schedule those meetings, make sure it's a time everybody can be available, make sure MASC is present because they're really driving this work with us, and then dive into the policy just sort of one section at a time. I believe it's A through K, so it's going to take a little time, but we knew that from the get-go, and it's sort of slow work, but you know, we think we're off to a good start. I do think we were hoping initially to maybe talk about A tonight a little bit. I think we're all grateful that we can't. But yeah, unfortunately, we had some conflicts with both MASC and some on our end. And you really need all parties to discuss the stuff that we're talking about in Section A. It's pretty dense. A lot of it is legal based, some of it is philosophical. But again, I think we'll reconvene with the subcommittees. We'll do a lot of that work there. They'll bring it to the board to review, ask questions, and hopefully approve.
So we're hoping that for the next meeting, we should have someone here from MASC with the deputy superintendent and yourself and members of the subcommittee that will report on that Section A, which is very, very important.
Correct. I think to have the kind of conversation that you really want to be able to have, both in the subcommittee meetings and in this space, you know, you really want your experts available on both the legal side of things in terms of mass general law, federal law, all those changes, as well as some of the things that are unique to Lawrence that you're trying to embed in these policy work as well.
I looked, when I was going through those policies, it was interesting for me to see that some of them were written in 1995, 20 years ago. So it's about time, and we need to get it right.
Yeah, this was something the superintendent sort of prioritized very early, was trying to get some of this stuff updated that maybe it was a little overdue. And we've been trying to push along as efficiently as we can. But as you know, it's sort of granular work, and we'll get there. It'll take a little time, but yeah.
Okay, any questions from the board at this time?
So we're not asking any specifics yet. We'll do that after the subcommittee meets.
sorry, what did he say?
Correct, yeah. I think that's the intent at this point. Yeah, we'll sort of reassess where we've come so far. I know you guys have already gotten a couple of sections. We can discuss those in the subcommittee, and then we can get into that granular work and then bring it back to the board to discuss at large. And you guys will have hopefully appropriate amount of time to work up some questions and have some discussion here before you approve anything.
I'm good.
Anything else? Okay, we've come to a point in the meeting. The Celtics at halftime were 59-59. So I hope when you go home, we have a victory. This concludes our meeting for tonight. The next anticipated LAE meeting will be June 11th. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Maria. Second?
A second.
Okay, thank you, Edgar. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Maria, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Thank you. Yes. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.